Good morning. This morning I want to talk about the story of Jacob's ladder. Those of you who were at my installation might remember that it's one of the texts I use because it's one of the stories that contains within it one of the anchoring ideas of my faith, and also one that brings me great comfort. And so I'm going to read the story in a minute, but I want to catch you up on where we are in the story. Isaac, the one who was almost sacrificed by Abraham, has had twin sons by his wife Rebekah, Esau the older and Jacob the younger. Jacob is younger just by moments, and he was born grasping at Esau's heel. Esau is his father's favorite, and as the older, he would be the one to inherit not only the greater share of his father's wealth, but also the blessing of the covenant, that the covenant with God would be carried out through him. And Jacob the younger is his mother's favorite. And as the younger son, he would not be the one to inherit either the big portion of property or the promise. But of course, we all know how the story ends because we refer to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, not Abraham, Isaac, and Esau. And so right before this morning's story, Rebekah, their mom, and Jacob have conspired to cheat Esau out of his blessing. They have deceived Isaac, who is now blind, and there's an elaborate ruse where they put animal skins on Jacob's arms so that when his father feels him, he'll think it's Esau. And they have tricked Isaac into giving Jacob the blessing. And when Esau learns about it, he swears he's going to kill his brother, which you can understand. And so this morning's story begins where Jacob has fled to go back to his mother's people, her brother Laban. And he is in the wilderness, and he is absolutely terrified and probably ashamed. And he has left everything he knows, and he's been deceitful. And this is where the story finds us. So let me begin reading. Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. And he dreamed that there was a ladder set up on the earth, the top of it reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And the Lord stood beside him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring, and your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth. And you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. And all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and in your offspring. Know that I am with you and will keep you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob woke from his sleep and said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So Jacob rose early in the morning, and he took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up for a pillar and poured oil on top of it. He called that place Bethel. Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And this is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. That is part of the anchoring idea of my faith. That everywhere you go, it is the gate of heaven. That everywhere you go, if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, you will discover that surely the Lord is in this place, and this is none other than the gate of heaven. Part of why I find this anchoring in my faith is that Jacob was not a good person. Jacob was not, the story tells us before this, Jacob was not a particularly righteous or good person. He traded his brother a bowl of lentils for his birthright, and then he participated in this elaborate ruse. And the story doesn't even tell us he's really a faithful person to this God that comes to see him in the wilderness. It gives me great hope that I don't have to be a particularly holy or good person for God to seek me out and find me where I am, for God to love me and promise to be with me, for God to reveal to me the goodness and blessing of God's creation and love. I have experienced the presence of God in places I would have not expected God to be, like a jail cell. Not that I was incarcerated myself, but visiting somebody in jail. Or a hospital bed where we kind of expect and hope God will be. But also out in the wilderness, by the creek by my house, on this deck where I am, in my own living room, in some of your living rooms, in my office, in ordinary places like the supermarket, and in places of great suffering. Part of the lesson of this story, of this great story arc of our patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is that God doesn't choose holy people. God chooses and loves all of us. And it is by working with God that we become holy. It is God's nature to deeply love us just because we are God's creation. And I have found that to be profoundly meaningful to me when I have not felt particularly holy or particularly priestly, or even when I haven't felt like a very nice person. The other piece of this, that God is everywhere, that everywhere is the gate of heaven, is part of what has sustained me during this coronavirus. I don't need to find God in our worship at St. John's. I can find God everywhere. Now that doesn't mean I miss our worship. I miss seeing all of you. I miss the music and being in that place together. I miss it so much. But I don't miss God, because God is everywhere. And this very place, my deck, your living room, wherever you are right now, is none other than the gate of heaven. My hope, my prayer, is that we will have eyes to see that we will have ears to hear God speaking to us in our dreams, whispering to us the dreams He has for us and for how we can participate with God in bringing love to the world. I suspect that God had to speak to Jacob in a dream because that might be the only way he could hear it, in that place where he was vulnerable but not ashamed. And I yearn for us to be able to hear God whispering, speaking to us sometimes in dreams, sometimes through the words of others, sometimes through things we read, sometimes just in a little thought that occurs to us. Sometimes the awareness comes miraculously and instantaneously, like it does for Jacob. Sometimes it just dawns on us over time. But know that God is in this place, that every place is none other than the gate of heaven. So, God is at work, even in this time and this space in our country where things feel frightening. Things feel so uncertain. They are uncertain. This place may look God-forsaken, but there is no place that is God-forsaken. Every place is the gate of heaven, and God is in this place, always, and with us till the very end. I hope that sounds like blessing to you, because it is surely an enormous blessing to me. Amen.
And our wrath is blessed.